How good do I think Andre Cisco can be? I ain't going to hesitate to tell you, and I'll do it right now on this episode of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining me, Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, the daily Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder to all of those on YouTube, make sure you subscribe for free to the Locked On Jaguars YouTube page. And if you listen to audio podcasts, wherever you listen to them, wherever platform you listen to them, make sure you check in every single day because we'll be there. Make sure you don't miss an episode. I want to talk to you today after I say hello to my everydayers, all of the everydayers, the people that make this podcast what it is by making sure you tune in every day and checking it out. We appreciate you and we thank you for making us who we are. Also to the new listeners, make sure you tap in when and wherever you can, man. If you come here 2 days in a row, that's my saying. If you're here second day in a row, you're not new. You're just here again and you can become an everydayer yourself. I want to talk about the secondary, and I'm going to break it down. And particularly, I'm going to talk about Andre Cisco, who I believe has a chance. Now, I know I'm going out here on a limb, and we're going to have to go through some of these names. But I think Andre Cisco has a chance, especially with the way football is played modern day, to be an absolute superstar for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There, I said it. I think he's going to be a star. And the reason why is because if you think back to when he was drafted, and I hate to go back to 2021 because it reminds us of some bad times, but it's inevitable that we go back there when we're talking about guys that were drafted the first year of the Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke regime that was collective at that time. Andre Cisco was thought to be a first-round talent who fell in the draft because he had an ACL injury his last year of college. So with that being said, if we really, really want to assess what he was before they picked him, he was a first round who got hurt and he made it to the third round, right? If we want to assess how he was brought along, we all got mad at Urban. We all got mad at Joe Cullen because Andre Cisco wasn't playing. And when he did get in the game, it appeared that he was just different. Like, even if he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do, he was so fast. I think Richie Pettibone, the longtime Washington football team defensive coordinator when they were winning Super Bowls, talked about the great Wilbur Marshall. He said sometimes he goes the wrong way, but he's so fast, he by the time he realizes, he turns around and he gets to where he's supposed to be anyway. That's what I kind of saw from Andre Cisco. He just looked different. And I think some of the things that he had to learn how to do, you only learn how to do them in the NFL on the field. The following year, he was thrown out to the wolves, and it started to pay off immediately. The first game I think about was the game in Philadelphia where he was just making plays all over the place, and making guys pay for real estate. You know, you come across that middle, there needs to be a price. And he did it without getting penalties. So that means he was under control. He was just there. He was sudden. He had a knack for finding the ball. And I think it got contagious. He is extremely, extremely important to this defense on that back end. Extremely important. And when you get a guy who can play the way he does, it just gives you a chance to do some things schematically, I believe, that maybe you wouldn't do if you had a different player. So this is more or less about, while everybody was trying to run that single high that Seattle was running, teams didn't have success at it, not because they weren't teaching it right, but because, Earl Thomas doesn't grow on trees. Guys like that, they're not just sitting out there in abundance. I had a scout tell me once, a former Jaguar scout who's still a very, very good friend of mine, who told me at practice, and this was back during the Gus Bradley days, he said the hardest thing to find outside of a quarterback is a free safety. And he talked about it because colleges play a certain way. And when and those guys don't do what you're going to be asking a guy to do when he gets to the NFL from a single high perspective. So, and the Jaguars are more than a single high team. I think they're very multiple on the back end, but a lot of times, and I've noticed this from some of the practices that I've attended, they make shifts, guys go in motion, and Cisco winds up being back there by himself. Now, of all the guys on this team, he is the one who is perfect to be in that space alone. And the reason why he's so perfect for that is because of his speed and his ability to have a navigation system in his head. And I know there are some people that want to think back to the Colts game last year or even the Washington game 2 years ago. Or was it last year? It could have been last year when Terry McLaurin got past Shaq Griffin and caught a touchdown. And I know in Indy, somebody did the same thing where they were just abusing Shaq Griffin, and it appeared that it was Andre Cisco's fault. Whereas probably a combination of both a little bit, but there wasn't much resistance in terms of jamming wide receivers at the line of scrimmage to at least stop them from getting to the point where they were getting to in their routes. And so it looked like Cisco was to blame for it, but I don't think he was, right? But he played so well for the rest of the season. And then I'm going to tell you in segment 2 something that I saw. Something that I saw in him when looking at him up close. And I was like, this dude looks different, right? And he really, really put that work in. And in segment 3, I'm going to tell you why I believe the secondary as a whole is a strength in segment 2 and 3. And then I'm going to talk about some of the other guys, and give you a couple of news and notes also from the Jaguars. We'll do all of that here on Locked On Jaguars in just a second after I let you guys know about today's sponsor, and that is FanDuel, man. And I am so glad that I have a chance to say this because you need to make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA Finals because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. Y'all didn't hear me. $2,500 up to that amount with a no-sweat first bet. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Yeah, I'm telling you. I got Denver. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I got Denver. They might lose game 1, but I think they're going to end up winning this series, so we'll just have to see. But there's no better place to bet all of the action on the finals than America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Glad to have you here joining us every day because it's your team every day. And we thank you all for making us your first listen. Talking about the secondary, I had set it up by giving you a little bit back history about Andre Cisco. Now we're going to talk about something that I saw recently. I was just flabbergasted when I saw what he looked like physically. When I finally saw that, when I did attend OTAs early this week, just blown away with his physicality, with the way that he looked, with how fluid he was in his movements. Now, mind you, they don't have pads on, but that's almost a good thing for anyone who was running across the middle because every single time that someone was in his vicinity, he looked like he was ready to tee off on them, and he kind of just did the Olay and let him go. I can only imagine what that's going to look like and feel like for the opponent. You got a guy that's probably, if he's not over 200 pounds, he's way more muscular than he is non-muscular, right? So he looks big. He looks like a 210-pound guy. I don't think he's that tall. I don't think he's that big. I'm going to look up his vitals right now, and I'll actually let you know exactly what he's listed at. But I'm telling you, man, he is just when you see him in person and you know what these guys are supposed to look like, then you realize that's exactly what a safety looks like. He's listed at 6 feet here, and I'll try to get all of his information up here for you real quick. He's listed at 6 feet, but I'm gonna tell you something. The movements, he's listed at 6 feet 210. So I was right. He is about 210 pounds, and that's a free safety. That's not what they call a box safety when he's over 210 pounds. He is 23 years old, and he is a 6 foot, 210-pound free safety. So that tells you a guy that big and that physical who can run like the wind playing the middle of the field, you can't beat it. The only guy I can think right now in the league that can even probably pretty much match that maybe is Kevin Byard at Tennessee, and he might not be there too much longer. Thank God, because he's a great player, all pro, and really has put up a nice career for himself. But he's another one that's big and physical. I think Trayvon Merrick is that way. I really like the kid down in Miami that came from Oregon. That's a good player also. But I take Andre Cisco. I'm gonna be dead serious. I take Andre Cisco over all of them, even the kid in Houston. I would. Hasn't had as much fanfare as those guys, but I really, really do believe that this is the year that everyone around the league is going to become a household name. Folks are going to realize that Andre Cisco ain't nothing to be playing around with, especially when you see what happens with people when they come across that middle. But it's not just his ability to impact the passing game. He's also a real good run stuffer. Now, he missed a couple of tackles here and there early, but he's a sure tackler. He gets to the spots really, really fast. He has all the range in the world. When you really, really think about his skill set, I'm telling you, in my opinion, it's just flat out easy to tell you. I think Andre Cisco is going to be a star. He's helped by the fact that he has some other good players in his secondary. And this secondary, because they were picked and they grew together over the last couple of seasons, I think now it's going to be something that's considered a strength, especially if they're able to figure out that slot. If they are able to figure out somebody to play in that slot, whether it's Trey Herndon, whether it's Monteric Brown, whoever they got. Chris Claybrooks is probably going to still get a look from a developmental standpoint. So when they can really, really figure out who exactly, and I got a little roster here, so I'll let you know. I could have found his size right here. I don't know why I didn't pick it up, but when you think about all of the guys that they have that can play that slot, Clay Brooks, Monteric Brown, we know Darius Williams is better outside, maybe Greg Jr. I did see Greg Jr. lined up in the slot a little bit. Chris Braswell is a kid that they really like. Those are going to be the guys that I believe are going to have an opportunity right away to really, really let themselves distinguish themselves in any way to be guys that can really, really play in the slot where it's a 60%, like 65 or some odd percent chance that they're lined up. And that number even goes up if the Jaguars are able to score early and get out ahead and get out in front of people. So, yeah, man, good-looking secondary, a lot of physicality. Rayshawn Jenkins he showed up last year. I don't think the team wins down the stretch without him. And I think he was pretty much underrated by me and a lot of people. The seventh-year player, 6'1", 200 pounds, another guy that can cover running backs, tackles real well in open space, and he's real good also at blitzing. He blitzed and caused a fumble that allowed them to win the Tennessee game because there was a scoop score when the Jaguars are having a hard time scoring. It was a scoop score by Josh Allen. Andre Cisco made that play. He made that play and saved the Jaguar season. So there's a lot to like, a lot to love about the depth. I think Darius Williams played pretty good for a guy who's only 5'9", 187 pounds. He did compete and play really, down the stretch. Once they moved him outside, he played really, really well. I think Andrew Wingard has a place because of his versatility, because of the special teams. And he just seems like he was for a long time the guy that everybody wanted to get rid of. And all of a sudden now, Andrew Wingard, more affectionately known as Dewey, is a really, really big part of what the Jaguars like to do on defense and on special teams. So I just think that, led obviously by Tyson Campbell at the corner, who I have not mentioned yet because he is probably their best player, along with Rayshawn Jenkins, it's going to lead me to this, and then to the third and final segment. Trent Baalke has actually done a really, really good job of improving the athletic profile of this team. And sometimes you can get used to a GM that takes picks that are 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks and just thinks they're just happenstance. I think it changes a little bit this year because I think they have some guys that they picked up late that are really, really going to help them. I'm going to profile a little bit of that too and give Trent Baalke some flowers. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, giving Trent Baalke some love. We've talked so far about Andre Cisco, how he looks like a guy who is a star in the making. And we've talked about his helpmates in the secondary and why I believe them growing together is going to bode well for the Jaguars' future and their future as individuals. They're all under contract. I think they're all going to keep getting paid. I mentioned during the draft that Trent Baalke, until this year, had not done a real good job of using late round picks to be guys that can actually help and make contributions on this team. And in 2 years prior to this, I was right. He hasn't. Like the first year and then the second year, he hasn't really had a bunch of his late round picks turn out. Now, ironically, in this year's draft, where this year was supposed to be a weak draft, according to people who rate them and call them weak or strong or try to make the determination of how many first round or grades. And I will say this until I go away. If there's 32 teams picking in the first round, then there's 32 guys that have. I'll just go give me the best 32 you got. They got first round grades on it, because I really don't know what a quote unquote first round grade is. I just don't. I mean, can you have 45 people with a first round grade? Can you? Or can you just name the top 32 people? So this year, when the draft was so-called not very good, and when there was only, I think some people said there was 19 to 20 guys with first round grades on them, the Jaguars had a whole bunch of picks, more picks than they thought they were going to have. In fact, they tried to get rid of them. A lot of them on day 3 did not work out. So they used those picks on players. From an athletic profile standpoint, I can flat out tell you that all the guys they picked are big and strong or long, and they have these characteristics that Trent Baalke really, really liked. Derek Parrish, 6'2", 245 pounds, rookie out of Houston, wears number 43. He looks like a wrestler. He looks like he's WWE or one of those MMA guys that's yoked up. He looks like security for like Money Mayweather or somebody. That's what he looks like. He looks like he'll beat everybody up. So I don't know if he can play fullback. I don't know if he can play H-back or whatever, but they're going to see. But one thing that I noticed that Trent did more than other people is they really went for physical talent, where other folks might look at body of work or other folks might look at skill level. The Jaguars, they just took as many big, fast, strong guys that have a certain makeup that they could find. And I don't think it's a bad thing to do that. I really, really don't. I'll tell you who else looks good. Abdullah. Yasir Abdullah looks like a very, very good prospect. He's running with the linebackers, not with the edge rushers. The edge rushers on this team are the linebackers. But when I saw him at 6'1", 240, he wasn't really working with edge guys. He was sort of doing some work with both those off-ball guys, as well as I think he could probably end up being a situational pass rusher. But I think they're going to see what he has about him as a complete linebacker. DJ Coleman, another rookie out of Missouri, with his length and size, he'll have a chance. Jordan Smith, all 6'7", 250 pounds. He said he came into camp at 260, but he lost a few pounds. But all 6'7" of him. He's back at practice, running around. He has a knee brace on that will come off. But yeah, I just see length. I see athleticism. And I really, really, 2.5 years in, I say half a year because I ain't going to give Trent all the blame for the first year, even though that was the year they got Trevor and all the rest of these dudes that everybody's counting on. So they actually did look pretty good. I'll give him credit. I can start to see the vision of what, he was doing every step of the way. I'd like a little bit more production out of the second year guys, but not going to beat it up. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I will tell you this. Someone else who looks really, really good and really, really fluid. Brenton Strange, of course he does, but Luke Farrell. I saw Luke Farrell running around. Man, Luke Farrell looked really good. Sammy Reyes looks good. He's 6'7", 240. I don't know if he'll ever really, really turn out here. But he also looked like a really, really good player. So there's a lot to really, really get excited about with the Jaguars. There's a lot to look forward to. But I wanted to give Trent his flowers here in segment 3 and say, okay, now I kind of see the plan. I kind of see where you were going a little bit. I kind of understand why when I saw the pass rushers, even with Josh Allen was there, I kind of understand why Trent went the way that he went in the draft and didn't go out and maybe get somebody else when we thought he may have should have gotten another player. Look, I get it. All right. I finally see it to the point where I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully you guys will do the same thing, give them the benefit of the doubt, because you got to be optimistic, because this is what it is. This is what it is. You got to give them a chance to show that the plan that they had worked. And since everything's tied to your optimism is tied to them being good. So let's see if they can get that figured out. All right. Make sure you tap in for the rest of the week. I'll give you another episode tomorrow as we continue to go through the roster, look at some strengths, look at some weaknesses, and then individually explain each and every aspect. I want to look at the big guys on the defensive line, and I think we'll do that tomorrow, where I look forward to the defensive line and actually go one by one and tell you the guys that I really, really like and what I expect out of them. Until next time, you guys take care of each other. We'll see you on Locked On Jaguars.